Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for a special discussion. Today we will discuss key questions you need to ask and the underlying factors you should consider to make more impactful, user-centered choices when selecting EdTech for your school. But before we get going, let me welcome our special guests. So Steve, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me here. I'm Steve Harmon, and I'm an EdTech specialist for a school district in South San Jose. For 13 years, I was in the classroom teaching mostly history and some technology electives. For the last 11 years, I've been an EdTech specialist where I train teachers how to use technology. I advise the district on technology purchases, things along those lines.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And our other guest is Megan, who's joining us remotely. Megan, could you please tell our audience a bit about your background and yourself?
Absolutely. Hey, my name is Megan Newhouse, and I am the Southeast Education Account Manager at Logitech. So that means I get to work with K-12 school districts and higher education learning institutions to help ensure that they have the right technology tools for their needs. Before joining Logitech, I was actually an elementary school teacher. I received my bachelor's of elementary education from the University of Kentucky, go Cats, and then I followed that up with receiving my master's in literacy education. So I'm super excited to be here with you all today, and thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, it's so great to have you both here with us today, and I know we have a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. So before you can make a decision on what tools to purchase, it's important to first understand your users' needs and what challenges they are facing. As we all know, we want EdTech to be something transformative, not just a substitute for traditional methods. So rather than just using a stylus like a pencil, for example, we would want students to use the stylus to do things a pencil can't do, like creating an illustrated presentation within a learning app. But without understanding user needs, it's hard to pick tools that they can use to explore new frontiers of learning. So this being said, our first question is, how can we ensure that student and educator needs are being met? And what factors are the most important to consider when selecting EdTech? So Megan, would love to hear from you first.
I think it's super important that we keep in mind the whole purpose of EdTech is to increase student learning. We do not want our EdTech to cause distraction or more frustration within the classroom. And this can be a hard thing to find when working in a varied learning environment like a hybrid classroom. So I think that there's 3 questions that we can ask ourselves to really help here. First would be, does the solution work in both an in-classroom environment and a remote learning environment? Second would be, does it boost collaboration, creativity, and/or engagement? And then lastly, what activities is it enhancing? If you're looking at the activities your students are completing throughout the day, you'll be able to see which solutions fit different activities and be able to see how often those solutions are actually going to be able to be used throughout the day and how much they can contribute and add to student learning.
Fantastic. And Steve, would love to hear your perspective as well.
One of the things that we kind of focus on often is we try to identify those teachers that are the most tech phobic or the least skilled in using technology. Because if we can identify them and figure out which applications or tools that we can train them how to use for the classroom, then we know that the tech savvy teachers, they're going to be able to easily pick that up as well. And everybody then is able to access that. So, teacher accessibility is one of the key things for helping students to be able to have access as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point, starting from those who have the most friction with the tech and working way up. So related to this, I would love to hear from both of you on what are you seeing as the most critical challenges or needs that students and educators are facing when it comes to EdTech? So Steve, what's your perspective on this?
Well, I would say that one of the things is to not let the learning about technology get in the way of learning what the teacher is trying to teach. Sometimes, if technology is too difficult or so forth, then it can require the teacher to teach a lot of tech, and that's not really what they're wanting to do. I remember when we first brought Chromebooks into the classrooms, and there were some kindergarten teachers that would say that students wouldn't be able to log in using a username and password. And it was something that was required so they can use other tools. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of training to get the teachers to the point where they felt like, no, if I spend a couple of weeks, helping the students with this and focusing on that, then the rest of the year, I didn't have to focus on that. And so it was good that they were able to get the tech teaching part out of the way quickly and then move on to actually teaching content. And so the tech part wasn't the focus, that's just the tool for learning for the students.
And Megan, what's your take on this? What are the most critical challenges that you're seeing?
I would also add that students and teachers really need technology that's built specifically for education. We recently did a survey with EdWeek Research Center, and we found that 57% of students are not using appropriate EdTech hardware. So as you can imagine, this has led to all sorts of problems down the road, whether this is ergonomic issues or just even increased breakage rates. If the students are distracted because they're uncomfortable or simply because their hardware is breaking, this is obviously not a good tool for them to use. So I think that we can ask ourselves a few questions here before making any sort of buying decisions. First would be, is the solution actually durable enough to survive the school day? Second would be, does it feature replaceable or swappable parts? If it does, this is super helpful. It's really going to stretch your budget because if one component goes out, you can just replace that part rather than the whole unit. Next would be, does it come with any sort of warranty or support? And then lastly, has it been tested by students throughout the design process? If it has, you can feel more confident that it's going to be a right fit in the students' hands or even on the students' heads.
That's a really great point. I would add that classroom disruption is a major challenge. That survey that you mentioned, Megan, also showed that 95% of educators said they stop instruction because students are not able to see or hear properly. Also, 77% of US-based educators in grades 3 through 12 say they repeat demonstrations and instructions 3 or more times per day. So we have these repetitions and stoppages happening all the time. They not only slow down instruction, but they also distract students and detract from learning. That's a big area of opportunity for tech. In order to meet those challenges we've talked about, we need to gather feedback. And that brings us to our next question. So how can schools gather student and educator feedback to ensure impact is being made? And how often should this occur? So Megan, what's your take on this?
We found that online surveys can actually be a really great way to collect feedback. They're quick, they're easy, and you can make them anonymous. As far as how often to collect the feedback, I would say there's no real single right answer, but it's good if you can make it at regular intervals, for instance, at the end of each semester. That way everybody gets used to the routine and they know what to expect. Having that regular cadence also ensures that your information always stays up to date and current, and your users get plenty of opportunity to share their thoughts. But with that being said, I would also say that it's important to be flexible. So that way, if a student or teacher notice something important with the technology, they're able to share that feedback right away rather than waiting for that next survey cycle.
So the next question would be about the culture that allows this to happen. So Steve, how do you encourage an open door policy at your school?
We do a couple of different things. So The IT department does have a technology recommendation list where it's technology that we have vetted out and made sure it will function within our environment along those lines. But we do leave a lot of technology purchases up to the school sites because the teachers know their classrooms better. They know what they need. Another piece is that every technology software that we use in the district, the company needs to have signed a student data privacy agreement. We can't hand out data, to companies without having this agreement in place, making sure that the companies will legally and ethically handle student data. And so that's one of the key things. And so we put out lists of all the agreements that we have so that teachers, administrators, even parents in the community can see what companies we've looked at and have agreements signed with us. And so that makes it a lot more easy. I think a big portion of that is transparency and being able to show teachers, this is what we're willing to support. This is the agreements that we have with companies. So these companies are okay if you're going to sign up for them. Like that is often a useful tool to have is that transparency where teachers know what's going on. If teachers don't have that transparency, they don't know what's going on, it's easy for them to misconstrue information or to sometimes even apply nefarious reasons for why things are being done. With transparency, we've found that it kind of allows teachers to provide feedback because they kind of understand where IT or EdTech are coming from or where the district is coming from. And they feel the openness then to say, well, this is something you guys missed, or this isn't working. And so that can be useful in them providing feedback to us.
Those are really fantastic points, especially, around transparency and having all stakeholders feel like they're a part of the process. Thanks for sharing. So in addition to surveys, I should mention as well that you can also try observing classrooms in action. This will allow you to discover factors that survey respondents might not have thought to bring up. Try to figure out what tools are sitting on the shelf the most and where learning time is being lost. Also, prototyping solutions in a room educators and students can come and try is a great way to gain feedback and get everyone excited about what's to come. So we've talked about tips and tricks for selecting a tool that solves a specific problem or making sure you're gathering user feedback. But this work doesn't happen in a vacuum. All IT leaders need to also be doing the math and thinking through the full return on investment for their purchase. When it comes to doing the math of EdTech selection, what areas should be considered?
First, I'll just say that getting into the habit of framing your buying choices in terms of the numbers is super crucial to gain insights when you're selecting your EdTech. It's really going to reveal what the right tools are for you and also help extend the life of those investments. So some of the numbers you can start looking at would be how many hours per day are the students actually using the technology? You could also look at how many help tickets are submitted per year. And are those help tickets a result of a lack of training? And if so, how big is that training hurdle going to be to overcome? Lastly, you could think about how many units of a solution are you replacing each year? And if that number is very large, is that solution actually built for the activities that are happening in your classroom?
Fantastic. Thank you, Megan. And Steve, how about your perspective?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we always try and look at as well is the total cost of ownership. So sometimes, people within the district will look at the sticker price for something and think, oh, okay, that's how much it's going to cost. And we always bring up to them, okay, well, if it's hardware, what's it going to cost to install it and maintain it, to repair it when it needs to be repaired? How much, professional development needs to happen, whether that's provided by the company or provided by me, for example, going in and helping the student, the teacher and the students to use that technology. Those are things that often get missed when people are considering those purchases. And so, we always try and bring those pieces back in and help them to consider how much is this really going to cost.
Got it. And once you're looking for a new solution and you're ready to make that first exploration, a question I have is, what are the common areas schools should consider when evaluating EdTech solutions?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that in education all over the place is that IT departments tend to be rather small. And so one of the things that we often look for is how much we can automate, like whether that's provisioning accounts or putting kids into rosters. If we can automate that, that's going to alleviate a lot of time and energy from the IT department, and they can focus on other things, making sure networks are running, that type of thing. We ask these questions where we say, is the system able to integrate with either our school information system, or SIS, or whether there are different products out there like single sign-on services that can be utilized so that teachers and students don't have to memorize usernames and passwords. So automation is useful and key in those areas. If the IT department can get feedback, right? Like, oh, this device isn't operational or something like that, then we don't even have to wait for the teacher to tell us that's not operational. We know we need to go ahead and fix that now. And teachers are often really happy about knowing that we're there before they even knew the problem existed. So that's useful as well.
That's really great. And it seems like that automation can also build that rapport and trust with educators as well.
Definitely.
You know, there not being friction with the solutions in the classroom. So that brings up a point around interoperability and flexibility. So automation is a great way to save time and energy, but it's also helpful when technology integrates with the existing tools and platforms in your school or district. That way you don't have to buy a bunch of adapters or require educators to learn new platforms. If a solution fits within the current infrastructure, you don't have to do as much ripping and replacing. So Megan, what's your take on this?
So true, Maddie. And just speaking of ripping and replacing, I would also add on, which you all have touched on already, that professional development is such a key factor to look at. If you're constantly ripping and replacing things, it's probably going to lead to professional development later on. And the problem with that is that our teachers just simply don't have time for more PD. They are already so slammed. So it's really important that the technology that we choose to implement is intuitive and easy to use, as well as to set up. So when we're evaluating new solutions, we can ask ourselves, is the solution user-friendly enough that students and educators can use it without any outside intervention? Often that comes down to its plug-and-play functionality. Can they just turn it on and go? Or are they going to have to expend extra energy to make sure it plays nicely with the technology that's already integrated into the classroom?
Those are fantastic points, Megan. Well, believe it or not, we're already at time. This has been a very insightful session. To quickly recap what we heard from our experts today, key questions to include in your EdTech purchase process are: what kind of learning does the solution support? Does the solution hold up to frequent student use? Does the solution require professional development? And lastly, does the solution mesh with existing software and platforms? Thank you both for giving us your time today, Steve and Megan.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Maddie.
And thank you to all the viewers for joining us. If you would like to learn more and stay in touch, go to logitech.com/education. You can also get a handy downloadable guide from today's webinar to refer to later. Thank you for watching, everyone, and hope to see you again soon.